Tasmania's always been the weird kid on the block. Odd politics, odd place, odd geography, odd a lot of things in comparison to the rest of Australia. But their profound lack of stability when it's come to politics, particularly over the last month, and you know what, no, particularly today, has truly been astounding. I seriously cannot understand the degree to which this political process and this political system consistently gets more and more chaotic the more I pay attention to it and the more we've seen it unravel over the last month. Today was a bit of a deadline for Tasmania, or more specifically the governor of Tasmania. At a certain point after election results are made official, she has to commission a premier. Basically, she has to put someone in charge to run the state because there can't be no government for any period of time in the state. So she had to pick somebody. And normally that isn't an issue in any given election. But considering how chaotic this has been and how many bumps in the road there have been towards any progress of either party forming a coalition government with anybody, the governor made the decision today to recommission Jeremy Rockliff as Premier on the basis that he is the incumbent and that it seems that Jeremy Rockliff at least presented to her a compelling case as to why he's going to be able to form government with this new parliament. And look, if anyone had to be assigned temporary Premier until Parliament reconvenes, Rockliff probably made the most sense. He got the most votes, the Liberals specifically. He has the most seats in Parliament of any one party. So it makes sense why he was picked. And he was the incumbent, like I said. But it does put us in a very unique situation for not just an Australian Parliament, but for broadly in parliamentary systems. I think Canada sometimes does this. But we have a situation where a leader of government in a parliamentary system does not have the confidence of a majority of Parliament. And that feels weird. And this was something that Rockliff actually addressed, which I thought was really interesting, was that he said that the onus was not on the Liberals to get a confidence motion passed in them when Parliament reconvenes. It would be on anyone who opposed them to bring a motion of no confidence, basically saying, look, I'm going to take on the responsibility of Premier, and I'm just going to try and govern, and when Parliament reconvenes, if anyone wants to challenge that, they can go ahead. Which I found very, very odd, because Rockliff was basically implying, like, unless somebody challenged him in Parliament, he was going to rule with minority status without any official deal with any crossbenchers whatsoever, just sort of a unspoken hush-hush agreement that he would be able to govern so long as nobody actually tested the numbers in Parliament. But that's pretty ridiculous, and I polled you guys on it. I asked, what did you guys think was going to happen? Over 1,000 of you voted, and I basically put up two options. Like, do you think he's going to immediately lose a confidence motion when he gets back to Parliament, or Liberals going to find a way to work it out? And you guys were actually right in the end here. Because very quickly after I posted that, Dean Winter came out and confirmed that if an independent wasn't going to, that when Parliament reconvened, the Labour Party would basically immediately be passing a motion of no confidence in Rockliff. We are right back to where we started. Hey, do you remember that no confidence motion that was passed in the Tasmanian Liberal government when they had 14 members, Labour had 10, the Greens had 5, and the crossbench was 6 in 2025? Do you remember that? Oh, really? Which one? Time is a circle. So the Labour Party or some crossbencher is going to put forward a motion of no confidence in this newly recommissioned Liberal government on August 19th when Parliament reconvenes. So now both parties actually have a deadline. They have 2 weeks or a little bit less to get their coalition supply and confidence agreements together and present them to the Parliament. Because Dean Winter has said that if their motion of no confidence passes in Rockliff's new government, well, then Dean Winter is going to put forward a motion of confidence in a Labour government, which Parliament will then vote on. So that means we have 3 potential outcomes on August 19th. First of all, the Liberals don't lose this motion of no confidence that gets brought forward. They find some way to satisfy these independent crossbenchers that they need to get to 18 seats, and they hold on. That's pretty difficult at this point. Not only is this crossbench more progressive than in the previous parliament, but I mentioned something about the Marinus link. Basically, the Liberals, even though they were in caretaker mode, approving an infrastructure project without being honest about what the funding and what the potential impacts on the economy would be. And that got one independent crossbencher, Craig Garland, to just rule out working with the Liberals. It turns out that actually irritated a lot of independent crossbenchers. So he's not exactly, Rockcliffe that is, he's not going to go into negotiations on friendly terms with a lot of the crossbench who is very fed up with him, some of whom even voted to bring down his government about a month ago. Now, the hope for the Labour Party, of course, is that the Liberal Party will lose that no confidence motion, and then it will be put to the Parliament by the Labour Party to have confidence in them as a government. And it's really not clear how it's specifically going to work, because mathematically they need the Greens, but they're not going to make any deals with the Greens, which is what they've said. So hopefully, I guess the Labour pitch is they get independent support from these left-wing crossbenchers who refuse to support the Liberals, and then fingers crossed the Greens kind of just vote for them because they're better than the Liberals, I guess. But that, of course, leaves a third option open. The worst option, let's be perfectly honest. The Liberal Party fails in its confidence motion, does not get the support of the House. The Labour Party puts forward itself. It still can't get support from a majority of the House, be it because the independents just aren't on board or the Greens aren't willing to play ball with Labour. We get into a situation where nobody can form majority government. What do we do from there? A third election in 2 years is not impossible, but it's incredibly unlikely, I want to clarify. I don't think there is any appetite whatsoever in Parliament for another election. Labour, the Greens, and the Liberals, over the last 2 years, back to back, have run statewide campaigns for office to get their people elected. They realistically do not have the money to run more campaigns right now. So that's a pretty big incentive to find a way to make this work. And God forbid there was an election, there is no guarantee whatsoever that the result wouldn't be the exact same thing for the third election in a row. And that's not even addressing the governor herself, who probably isn't that open to the idea of signing off on another election this soon. She has exercised a lot of power over the last year or so, having to constantly be engaged in this political chaos. And look, purely at state finances alone, financing another election, hiring the electioneers, doing all that, it is entirely justifiable and reasonable to think that she might not accept the idea of putting together another state election after this. August 19th, that's when it's all going to wrap up. This Parliament will vote and pick a new, stable government. I will update you guys on it then, or I will be updating you on how the situation somehow got even more confusing, chaotic, and out of control. I'm looking forward to it.